We're going to make sure here in Pennsylvania that we respect the will of the people. We're going to get an accurate count. It's the law. The law says count every eligible vote, and that's exactly what's happening. The president doesn't count these votes. The clerks in our communities count these votes. You know, these issues, the legal issues, have largely been settled, and now it is time to count these votes.
Just hours after the Attorney General of Pennsylvania spoke about ballot counting and the president, the Trump campaign asked the Supreme Court to take up the case that allowed mail-in ballots to be accepted until Friday evening. Trump, he wants to halt that counting because he says fraud is rampant. I'll save the suspense. It's not. That's something that he's frankly been just about lying for months. In the meantime, the president, he is up in Pennsylvania as we speak. However, that lead getting whittled away as mail-in ballots continue to be counted. The president has got about a 300,000 plus vote lead, but nearly 1 million ballots have not been counted yet. Those have been leaning heavily to Biden, the former VP, confident that at the end he'll take the state.
I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted were cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania.
I want to bring in our guest to discuss someone who knows Pennsylvania very well, Congresswoman Chrissy Houlahan, a Democrat from the Keystone State. She's also an Air Force veteran. She won re-election last night. Congratulations, Congresswoman.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me tonight.
Well, obviously, you have a very good perspective on this. How do you think, given where the outstanding votes are to be counted in terms of people who actually voted in person, but also the mail-in ballots, how do you think at the end this is going to shake out?
So I'm feeling optimistic. You know, when you look at the math, as the vice president just talked about, at this point in time, we have about 1 million votes still left to count, votes that were duly cast, and they deserve to be counted. And the people who cast them, we need to respect the fact that they have the right and opportunity to do that. And if you do that math with and it remains consistent with about 78% of those going to the vice president, then we end up with a lead. The vice president ends up taking Pennsylvania, I believe, by as much as 100 to 200,000 votes, which I think is a pretty significant victory.
How dangerous is it for a president to claim that they're cheating in Pennsylvania, there's fraud, they're trying to, undo the will of the people, given the volume of times that we live in?
I think it's incredibly irresponsible. I think it's incredibly frustrating to have the commander-in-chief, our president, casting doubt into the election. As Josh Shapiro, our attorney general, spoke, the people who are processing our votes are just normal, everyday citizens who volunteer in most cases to do this really important work of making sure that every voice is heard and every vote is counted. And to cast aspersions upon those regular, everyday citizens and to deny the right for each person to have their vote and voice heard is absolutely antithetical to our democracy, antithetical to the responsibility that this commander-in-chief and our president has to his people, to our community and our country and Commonwealth.
Were you as surprised, at least as seemingly everyone, given where the polls were and how many Democrats last night lost? People, the betting money was at the end of the county, the Democrats were going to take back the Senate with maybe a seat or two to spare. It certainly doesn't look like that's going to happen. And even a lot of freshman Democrats, colleagues of yours, they're not going to have a job come January in Washington. Can you give any reasoning as to why so many people were so wrong with how they thought last night was going to turn out?
I am very saddened by the loss of several of my colleagues who will not be able to return. So many of them are just incredibly remarkable people with remarkable backgrounds and service hearts. And so that makes me incredibly sad. I was also surprised, as you mentioned, I think there will be a reckoning of sorts where we need to get together all of the C's, as you mentioned, and figure out what went sideways here, because we certainly were not expecting those losses. And in fact, you're right, there were expectations of gains. But at the same time, we also are seeing some, glimmers of hope in Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona, in Pennsylvania, where we know that the people are speaking. They're speaking their minds of who they'd like to see lead us.
Joe Biden today spoke in Delaware about not prematurely declaring victory, but at the end believing he would be the president and that he was going to try to bring the country together. You know how polarizing things are right now and how polarizing they may get in the next couple months here before there is a transition of power, if there is a President Joe Biden. Do you think that can happen? And can that even happen on Capitol Hill?
Absolutely. And that's the way a responsible leader speaks. You know, a responsible leader speaks to all of the people, not just the ones who elected him or not just the ones who supported him. And a responsible leader works from even before day one to bring people together and to reach out and across. And that, I think, is why Vice President Biden, I hope, will be elected and will serve honorably in this position to be able to bring us together. And I do have hope. Whether or not people are able to see it because of how we are divided at this point in time, there really are good people who are working together across the aisle to make things happen. I am hopeful that we will be able to work together still to this day on another package of COVID relief, as an example. I work aggressively to make sure that I am working across the aisle with organizations such as For Country, which is a bipartisan caucus, or the Problem Solvers, which is a bipartisan caucus that I participate in. And so there are glimmers of hope. There is bipartisanship in the Congress and in the country, and I'm hopeful that the Vice President will be the healer that we need to be able to bring us together.
Congresswoman, again, congratulations on last night. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. You as well.
And a reminder, tomorrow evening, we'll be joined by Senator Casey from Pennsylvania to get an idea on what went so wrong and also the challenges lying ahead for both the U.S. Senate and also where he sees Pennsylvania, playing out between court challenges and everything else. All right, we come back, though. The projections, they weren't just wrong, they were really wrong again. Why did every major poll have Biden winning by a whole lot, yet it's a squeaker that he may wind up losing? Well, we're going to take a look at why and also the implications.